Hello, everybody. My name is Dr. John McAtamney. Welcome to the Band of Brothers. Our special guest tonight is a very good friend of mine, one of our brothers here within the group on Long Island, Dr. Brian Ferris, a Palmer graduate from a few decades ago. Just leave it
Hey,
at
hey. Easy.
that. Dr. Ferris, the floor is yours, baby.
All right. Thank you, John. Thanks for inviting me. This is a hard presentation to give because I look at all the faces that are on here today, and most of you are mentors to me. So how am I going to present something to you that's, I don't know, gives you some spark or some insight? So it's a bit of a challenge. So bear with me. I'll do my best. I guess the best I can do is start with my story and then tell you about what I've been into lately, what I've been researching lately, what's struck me lately. Um, my story in chiropractic is it started. As John mentioned in the little blurb that he sent out in the email, I used to wrestle in high school, and I had a neck injury where I couldn't move my neck. Um, and back then my mother didn't know and my parents didn't know anything. So we went to the medical doctor. He gave me some drugs and he told me to wear one of those foam cervical collars around in school all day. Well, I had no problem taking the drugs, but I'm not going to wear a foam cervical collar, in school when you're 15 years old. You may as well put a sign on your back that says, beat me up and steal my lunch money. So, um, so that caused a lot of friction between me and my mother, as you would expect. And this went on for about a week. And a neighbor lady told my mother about a chiropractor a couple of towns away. And she had never heard of chiropractic. So we made an appointment. We went. I went and I remember his waiting room was full. And I remember, if he told me the chiropractic story, I wasn't ready to hear it. So I'm not sure if he did or not, but he did, a rotary brake on each side, boom, boom, boom. I was in and out in a minute and a half. The next day I was totally fine. Could go back to practice the day after, and everything was great. And that was my only experience with chiropractic. And I really, obviously didn't really understand it, but I went to college, studied anatomy, always fascinated me. I always took courses in anatomy, functional and morphology, dissected everything from fetal pigs to cats to frogs. Um, so when it came time, I guess, when like junior year or whatever, you got to figure out what you're going to do with your life. And I knew I wanted to do something in healthcare. I probably had the grades to go to medical school, but that didn't spark me. Something told me that wasn't for me. So I went, this was pre-internet, so you had to actually get a book out of the library to look things up. I went to the school library, got a book on healthcare professions out of the school library. The book was probably, I don't know, an inch and a half thick. And there was like 4 pages on chiropractic. Okay. So I read the 4 pages on chiropractic and it didn't really illuminate very much, but I realized that chiropractic wasn't just for neck pain. It was for all types of back pain. And I went, okay, well, at least I'm treating the whole body here. So literally on a whim, I applied to chiropractic college. I applied to 5 chiropractic colleges. I got into 4 of them. The only one I didn't get into was New York Chiropractic College, which at the time I was disappointed about because New York was on Long Island and it would have been easy, convenient. Uh, but it turned out to be a blessing that I wasn't, you know, accepted to New York. So then I'm looking at the 4 that I was accepted, and I looked at the one that was closest. Life wasn't in existence way back in the dinosaur days. Um, the one that was closest to Long Island, if you drew a straight line across the map, was Palmer. So that's why I chose Palmer. I didn't know anything about the Palmer family or the legacy or anything having to do with their roles in chiropractic. It literally again was on a whim. Um, but I was in orientation the day before school started. I'm sitting in orientation at 9 o'clock in the morning, and Dr. Virgil Strang, the dean of philosophy at Palmer College, is talking, and he's telling what we know as the chiropractic story. Probably the first time I've heard it. I heard it with mature ears or something. But he's, telling us all the stuff we know: above, down, inside out. Subluxation blocks nerve flow that interferes with the body's ability to keep itself, all the stuff we know. And I remember at 9:30 that morning, I was sitting there with my mouth open, stunned. And if I was a cartoon character, a light bulb would have gone off over my head. I just kept repeating to myself, I'm in the right place. I'm in the right place. I'm in the right place. And I got a healthy dose of philosophy on that first day, and it sparked my interest. Something hit me that, you know, again, this was all done with very little research, but I landed in the right place. If all of us have said, we didn't choose chiropractic, chiropractic chose us. I'm the poster boy for that, because I knew very, very little. I went out on a hunch, and I landed in the right place. I landed where I was supposed to be. Um, Another thing that happened to me out there was, and I've told him this, was meeting Jim Dubell, believe it or not, because he was a little, I think he was a year or a little more than a year ahead of me in school. And he was the only one I knew who was reading green books, even at that time. No, I didn't even know what a green book was. And in talking to him and getting interested in what he was learning, he Xeroxed for me a chapter in the BJ's book, The Glory of Going On. Okay. He Xeroxed for me a chapter called How Does Innate Contact Educated? And How Does Innate Intelligence Contact Educated Intelligence? And it's about 12 pages, and I still have it, by the way. Um, and I won't go into a whole diatribe of how it happens, but basically it made opened my mind to there's a universal intelligence. We have an innate intelligence inside of us. Universal intelligence is constantly talking to innate intelligence, sending these things called innate thought flashes, which show up as that wee small voice or a hunch or a feeling. We know what we've all experienced it. And I realized that I was in Palmer and learning to become a chiropractor basically because I listened to the wee small voice inside of me. Something felt right about it, even though I didn't know about this whole concept back then. So anyway, that chapter, I think, changed my life. And the fact that, again, in order to hear innate, you have to get your educated mind out of the way. You have to subjugate your educated mind to the innate mind, okay? Because the innate mind is the one that knows everything, and your educated mind only knows what your preachers and teachers have taught you and your life experience. The innate mind is so much bigger. So again, for those, I've talked about this at New Beginnings. I've also, stuff like this intrigues me, and I'm a bit of a nerd like this, because whenever I see a scientific article that proves chiropractic or proves the subluxation or the damage that a subluxation can do, I always save them. I always hand them out to patients. I talk about them. And I love it when other professions, other people, other influential people agree with the chiropractic premises that we hold dear, okay? Or agree with this whole concept of universal, innate, educated. Uh, um, and I gave a talk in New Beginnings about if this concept is true, and it is, and BJ didn't just make it up, which he didn't, then it's a universal principle. And a universal principle is available to everybody, not just chiropractors. So creative people have to go to this well of innate intelligence within them in order to get their creative ideas. So I gave a talk in New Beginnings, and I'm into music. So my talk was about 4 rock stars that I saw videos on and wrote notes about. And I don't know if you guys remember it. I did it a couple of years ago. Well, there was like a 20-minute standing ovation at the end, and women threw their underwear on stage. That's how I remember it. But anyway, the 4 rock stars, they expressed on these videos, and I wrote down what they said, how they dip into the creative well that makes them creative people and makes them songwriters. And the words they were using were almost word for word things that BJ said in that chapter of The Glory of Going On. used one or two different words, but the meaning was exactly the same. So again, I love this stuff, and I'm a bit of a nerd like this, but I love when other people in other walks of life agree with our principles, our situation. So in doing, I don't know how I came across this, but Carl Jung, who is the famous psychoanalyst, okay, Jung, student of Freud, he wrote about a thing called the collective unconsciousness, okay? And he says, and I quote, our mind is connected to something much greater than our individual brains, okay? Sounds like he's talking about universal intelligence to me, right? Collective unconsciousness, you could substitute the words universal intelligence. He also wrote about this thing called the self, okay? The self is inside all of us and is bigger than the ego. I love that. Where did BJ say the ego lived? Did it live in the educated mind or the innate mind? You can't answer me, so I'll answer it. It's in the educated mind. So Carl Jung says inside all of us is the self, and it is bigger than the ego. Innate intelligence works in our life when we subjugate the educated mind or humble the educated mind to the bigger knowledge, the bigger expanse of the innate mind. BJ wrote The Bigness of the Fellow Within. That's what he was talking about. The bigness of the fellow was the innate mind. He wrote a book called Giants versus Pygmy. Again, the giant was the innate mind, the pygmy was the educated mind. So when we subjugate ourselves to the innate mind, things happen. We get answers to problems. Our life is easier. Our life is more peaceful. Relationships work. Prosperity comes. Abundance comes. Whatever. All good stuff, because we're connecting to the reservoir of knowledge that is in the universe, which is universal intelligence, which Jung called collective unconsciousness. Okay, and Jung said that a relationship with the self, his version of the self, what we would call the innate intelligence, produces wholeness, integration, and a full realization of who you are. Almost exactly what BJ talked about, almost word for word. And again, this concept of BJ's that I'm describing, universal, innate, educated, isn't just Jung. Hinduism believes this. The Tao believes it. Certain parts of the Kabbalah talk about it. There's a science of philosophy called panpsychism that talks about it. Christian mystics like Meister Eckhart and Thomas Aquinas talk about it. They say there is no separation between the individual and the creator, which is exactly what BJ said. If we get our educated mind out of the way, those thoughts, that separation is made manifest. Okay. So again, I love when these things validate our principles, the stuff that BJ talked about, because it proves that BJ didn't make this stuff up. These are universal principles that work for everyone. And BJ didn't just write these 12 pages on it. He wrote hundreds of pages on this one concept that I'm talking about because it's that important. Okay. So to follow it through with the next part of my presentation, this was given birth because of Ron Sinagra giving a talk at New Beginnings a couple of years ago. I take that back. Ron Sinagra doesn't ever just give a talk. He gives a rant. So he gave a rant at New Beginnings a couple of years ago and showed a video of the quantum physics experiment, the double slit experiment. I don't know if you guys remember it. But he talked for an hour and he explained the double slit experiment. I'm not going to explain it now. It would take too long. You can go on YouTube and watch, just YouTube, enter into the search double slit experiment. You'll see 10 or 12 videos that come up and explain the whole thing. But basically, this was a very, very early quantum physics experiment that showed that an electron or a subatomic particle like an electron can be a particle and a wave of energy at the same time. Plus, the particle and wave of energy can be in multiple places at the same time. It's, blows your mind. Stuff like this violates all physical laws. It also, one other thing it showed that the observer of the experiment changed the outcome of the experiment. Just by the process of observing the experiment, the outcome of the experiment was changed. Okay, so again, and he brought it out to bringing that into your everyday life. You, as the observer of your everyday life, have an influence over how the outcome of your everyday life is based on quantum physics, which was mind blowing to me. I mean, we're told to visualize, and this scientifically proves that we have an influence. So again, you got a question: what kind of attitude do you approach your day with? Are you thankful? Are you grateful? Are you loving? Or are you worried and miserable and fearful? And and I know I'm talking to the choir here. I know what side of the fence you guys fall on. But anyway, if you don't like the rest of my talk, blame it on Ron Sinagra, because he didn't force me. I guess I love doing this stuff. So I did a deep dive into quantum physics and learned a whole lot about it. And the stuff in there will blow your mind. And I'm certainly not qualified to tell you every aspect of quantum physics. Werner Heisenberg, who was one of the early founders of quantum physics, said, if you think you know quantum physics, you don't know quantum physics. And he's right, because there's 1,000 rabbit holes that you can go down with this, okay? But every time I was looking up videos and reading about quantum physics, it would cross my mind, or it would hit me in the head that these guys are talking about our chiropractic principles, okay? Validating our chiropractic principles. I'll give you a couple of examples. Stevenson's principle number 1. We all know it, the universal principle. There is a universal intelligence in all matter, continually giving it its properties and actions, thus maintaining it in existence. Universal intelligence in all matter, giving it its properties and actions, thus maintaining it in existence, okay? We all know that. Max Planck, the father of quantum physics, the Nobel Prize winner, coined the term quantum physics. He states, and I quote, "I regard consciousness as fundamental. All matter is derived from consciousness." You can substitute, it wouldn't be much of a stretch to substitute the word intelligence for consciousness, okay? In fact, these guys use it interchangeably. So let's read that again. "I regard intelligence as fundamental, and all matter is derived from intelligence." There is a universal intelligence in all matter. Isn't that the same thing? I can't find much difference in that. Erwin Schrödinger, another Nobel Prize winner, another famous quantum physicist, states consciousness did not arise out of matter. Consciousness creates matter. That was a revolutionary idea back then. This was early 1900s, like 19 teens to 1920s. Revolutionary idea. And again, it proves at least the first part of our first principle, of Stephenson's first principle, that there is intelligence in all matter. Okay? David Bohr, another famous quantum physicist, a little later than those two guys, the first two guys, said matter and consciousness, I can't read. Matter and consciousness are aspects of an undivided process, meaning matter and consciousness work like this. Okay? So, again, I love it when learned people, when science, when other people see the world and see the universe the way the chiropractors see the world and see the universe. And these guys are right on with, these three concepts are almost word for word the exact same concept as there is a universal intelligence in all matter. Now, what about the second part of that question, the second part of that sentence? There's a universal intelligence in all matter, continually giving it its properties and actions, thus maintaining it in existence. What about that? Well, glad you asked. I'll answer. Back to Max Planck. He said, and I quote, what we perceive as matter is the manifestation of a force. I'm going to get back to the word force in a minute. What we perceive as matter is a manifestation of a force that causes subatomic particles to oscillate and holds them together. causes subatomic particles to oscillate, giving it its properties and actions, and holds them together, thus maintaining in existence. Am I nuts? Is that basically saying the same thing? I don't get it. These science has proven what we believe. Yeah, because again, our 33 principles are nice, but most people just have faith in them. And it's a good, well-placed faith, because I believe it explains a lot of what we do with chiropractic, but I love it when science proves and the science strengthens our faith. All right. Principle number 2 in the 33 principles. I'm not going to do all 33 principles, by the way. I've only got one more to go. Principle number 2 says, from Stevenson, says, the expression of intelligence through matter is the chiropractic meaning of life. The expression of intelligence through matter is the chiropractic meaning of life. Erwin Schrödinger again. He said, life is an expression of cosmic intelligence organizing itself into matter. Other than the fact that he used the word cosmic and we use the word universal, that sentence is almost word for word exactly what Stevenson said. In fact, Schrödinger said it first. Stephen could be sued for plagiarism for stealing Schrödinger's idea. I'm not sure if he ever read Schrödinger. Maybe he did. I don't know. But life is an expression of cosmic intelligence organizing itself into matter. Schrödinger. And here's the cool part. This is the cool part for me. It's not like Schrödinger and Max Planck and Werner Heisenberg and Albert Einstein were like sitting in a room somewhere, smoking a joint, passing it around, listening to Grateful Dead music. And Schrödinger goes, hey guys, listen to this. Life is an expression of cosmic intelligence organizing itself through matter. And everybody goes, oh, dude, that's really cool. You should write that down. That's not how it happened. At least I don't think
there's no saying they didn't.
I'm 99.9% sure that's not how it happened. These guys did everything with incredibly complicated mathematical formulas and experiments that proved that the mathematical formulas proved the experiment, and they arrived at these postulates based on the math, because the math could indicate no other explanation. So the mathematics is what proved, what they're saying, what they're writing, what they're talking to their colleagues about. And again, why I love this is because we have schools, unfortunately, that say, chiropractic philosophy, it's quaint, it's nice, it's an old-fashioned theory, it's not scientific. Bullshit. This is all right, you do the math that this guy did. You do the calculus that this guy did. You do the experiments that this guy did. This is as scientific as you can get. Okay? Last one. Principle number 8 in Stevenson said the function of intelligence is to create force. Back to Planck with his sentence about force. What we perceive as matter is merely a manifestation of force. The force that is active in atoms comes from a conscious and intelligent mind, quote unquote. The force that is active in atoms comes from a conscious and intelligent mind. The function of intelligence is to create force. If you can tell me the difference between those two sentences, you're a better man than me, because other than he used a few more words, it's the same exact meaning. Okay? And I love this. I love this concept of using outside science, using outside learned people, agreeing with what we say, validating what we say, doing experiments that prove what we say, because for one reason, it increases my certainty in what I'm doing. Okay? And why is increasing your certainty in what you're doing important? I was listening to a Sigafus talk not that long ago, maybe 10 days ago. And Sigafus said, the age-old question, why does one chiropractor see a lot of people and have a very big practice where the chiropractor in the same town 2 miles down the road is struggling, even though they might both be doing the same technique? Well, the answer, of course, is we know, because we know this stuff. It's because one had more certainty. The one with the big practice had more certainty. And certainty it's First of all, it's what makes you a good chiropractor is your certainty, and the certainty has to be in the principles. It has to be in the philosophy. So anything that strengthens my certainty about the principles, about my philosophy, I feel like I'm standing on a rock of granite instead of some sand. And I know I'm standing on a rock of granite because, again, when you increase your certainty, your intention changes. So the intention that you're going to deliver the adjustment, the mindset of the chiropractor delivering a principled adjustment is different than the mindset of a chiropractor delivering a mechanistic adjustment, even though we might be adjusting the same segment. You might both be adjusting atlas, but because of your certainty and because of the intention of why you're adjusting the atlas, um, it, 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 it gives a different outcome. It gives a different experience to the patient, a different experience to their innate inside, and therefore you're going to get a different outcome. And again, I can prove that scientifically. I gave a talk exactly about that. I think the last time I talked about in New Beginnings. So again, I love this because it increases your certainty, it increases your intention, it increases the outcome for the patient, and it's provable. And now that I've bored you with all the science and fed your educated mind with hopefully a little bit more certainty, I'm going to leave you with this. Now that you know this, flush it down the toilet and use it to increase your certainty, but get out of your educated mind. The next time you go to the office, go have fun. Go love your patients. Go be thankful chiropractic chose you to be a chiropractor. Um, Laugh with your patients. Love them. Tell them the story. Get excited. When you're excited, when you're loving, when you're thankful, when you got gratitude, you're not in your educated mind. You're in your innate mind. Things happen. The universe works through you. You are a hollow vessel the way we're supposed to be. That's pretty much all I got. I probably didn't run 20 minutes, but
Oh, you've been talking for half an hour, baby.
have I?
Yeah. Listen, I've heard your story half a dozen times. It is one of the best stories I've ever heard for being led by an eight. So thank you for sharing it again.
Oh, thank you.
You know, I love you, brother. Love you, brother.
Love you
Um,
too.
and you got your talk for November 7th.
Now I'm going to change it around a little bit.
Anybody else want to give Brian some love, man? This was amazing. He did a great job.
It's great to hear where people come from. Thanks, Brian.
Thank you.
Fine, that was a nice talk, man. I really, really appreciate it.
Thanks, Leo.
That made perfect sense. Things that we already thought about, but the fact that you verified it with all these people that were mathematicians, that proves our certainty. I mean, what we always believed, but it's
Right.
you
Yeah.
put that together pretty good.
Smarter men than us have said the same thing we're saying.
Brian, that was fantastic. You hit the nail right on the head. Indeed, the simple man that he was thought of all these things way back when, before the physicists came up with these ideas. And he even said chiropractic is the science of life. I mean, this is just how great thinker he was. Thank you so much for that presentation. Awesome.
Good job. No, you're not kidding, Joe. I never thought of it that way. You're right. He was
I'm
way,
going to
way,
share
way ahead
something.
of
I'm
time.
going to share something that was. I was watching something on Simon Senson's Institute. This guy, Dr. Hoke, who graduated from Palmer in 1952. One of the things he said was a fascinating 2 hour presentation. But one of the things he said was everything that's written in chiropractic, the 33 principles, everything was given us by Dr. Didi. And he said, I can only think of one other person who gave us a set of rules that will stand the test of time. Can anybody guess who that was?
Moses.
And Moses, exactly, Moses.
Wow.
Oh, he says, if he says you take the time to understand Didi, he goes, he is on the same level as Einstein and Planck and all of the great thinkers that came before him and after him, but he's never been appreciated. So what you talked about tonight, and you tied it to chiropractic principles, dude, that was amazing.
Yeah, and again, just maybe not to belabor the point, I could go on with other principles too, but these three principles, you get the idea. The stuff we believe, the stuff we stand on is rock solid and is provable.
No, Brian, I got to just say this. I think you should do it on all the other principles. And I think that that should be something that someone could get who goes to chiropractic school first. They should actually listen. So this way they get the idea that this is real. This shit's fucking real. It's not like something that, oh, you got to believe this. Science is showing you this, and you can have that effect. I think it would be very, very positive for the profession and for future people who consider chiropractic as a profession. I think it's great.
Well, when I write my best-selling book, we'll talk about
Go for it.
Make a
Brian,
podcast.
can I get a copy of those 10 pages that Dubell sent you?
that. Yes,
I would
I will
love
try to
see
get that
those.
to you.
Did you ever buy the book?
No.
I gotta share. I bought because I just wanted to see what it had to say. I bought Strang's book, and I said, "What am I going to learn?" But I'll read it anyway. It was pretty amazing. He's very
He was
different
right.
spin on things. He was really good, man. I got a lot out of the book.
He was right on. I mean, Palmer back then was a heavy philosophy school. We had philosophy for the first 3 quarters, and every teacher brought every disease they talked about back to the subluxation, back to the nervous system. It was you got a lot of information out of that.
Let me ask
You got a good bedrock to stand on.
one other question. Like, have you ever asked your CA how many different conditions you think chiropractic can help? I asked my CA there, and I wrote like 3 pages of different I've seen help by chiropractic. She goes, "Oh my God, all these things." And I says, "Your consciousness, it's not like if you think that just neck pain and back pain, that's like the center if you think that, but it affects, this and affects that. Like you're just drawing more people to because something you already know that it helps. It's like that you have no doubt. You know for a fact that it works. And
Right.
so like that's something that I think everybody should be aware of, the things in their own personal practice, whether it was a week or whether it was 40 years, 50 years, you have to have, MS, no big deal. I had 1,000 people like that. It's no big deal. It's unbelievable, like what we can affect or what we can make a change with. And I think
Right.
that you have an actual science path that people can like lean on and say, wow, and there's very few people that break it down like you do. There was one other guy who used to do the whiplash. What was his name? That guy, Christopher Kent was a big one, but there was a few other doctors that like broke it down. But for the philosophy, this is freaking awesome. It's really good.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Brian, awesome stuff, brother. That was great. I love the connection between like you think about the early days of the Palmers putting together this philosophy, this understanding of the healing art, and to think about it's I would always try to put myself back in time and think about. I mean, we have the luxury of having their books and
Right.
knowing from so many other people. Imagine Didi. He had nothing to go by, but what was given to him. And then to, I'm sure they understood Schrodinger and all of these guys and took these concepts, but to then take it and have it apply to specifically to the chiropractic profession is just brilliant and beautiful. And Leo's absolutely right. More people need to know this going in. It's and it really is important because that's what sets the foundation for your certainty. Understanding
Absolutely.
it going in. And you talked about the certainty in principles and philosophy. And the one thing you didn't mention, I know you know it though, in technique. And when you combine those three, that's becomes the adjustment with that something extra,
Right.
and unfortunately the kids are missing that coming out.
Yeah, BJ talked about that, the adjustment with that something extra. And like you said, that's exactly what he's talking about. It's the firmness of the principle, the certainty of the principle, the certainty of your intention. That's the something extra.
You know that you know that you know.
Yeah.
Claude Lassard just came out with a book a year ago where he's broken down all the 33 principle and has put them in English, for like people for people to actually understand, and it's excellent. I would highly recommend it. And he's coming out with another one, the chiropractic textbook, in 2027. So he's on a roll, this guy,
Who's he?
and his first book is excellent. It really is. It brought a lot of things forward to me that I had concepts of and understood, but I looked at them a little differently, and he kind of put it full circle. As soon as I started reading, I was like, oh, okay, so there's the way I think and the way this chiropractor thinks.
Who's
And
that?
it was amazing. And it was amazing was we were reading the same stuff. Claude Lessard. He was a personal friend, and a very good friend of Rose Panico.
Mhm.
Wow.
Yep.
Yeah, he pretty amazing guy. I got to meet him at Lyceum this year. I sat in a room with him and talked to him for like a half hour. And once I mentioned Rose, he wanted to sit and talk with me. He loved Rose. But just he's like, you bought me. He goes, can I sign your book? I said 100% so, sir. I had him sign the book. But he really is a very sharp dude who loves what we love. And Brian, it's bringing it to the lay people and getting them to really understand, or bringing it to the most intelligent people and letting them see how much we are similar to them. And I don't know if Didi had a special anything other than he was just one of those people who are connected, just like Einstein, just like Da
Right.
Vinci, just like there are special people who bring forth certain principles and certain things, and what he left was us to venture further. That's and when you look at how things are catching up, I'm going to vomit if I hear one more person tell me about their medical doctor who's now talking to him about chemical, physical, and emotional in regards to their health and well-being. And I'm just shaking my head how some of them are bringing nutrition into their practice, and talking about body movements, and it's just like, Jesus, it's just
Wow.
coming full circle. And that's why we have to open our doors to anyone despite our philosophy. And we can't jam our philosophy down their throat. But when we bring them to it and we let them make their own decisions, I think that has been the greatest gift in my practice, that I've never really tried to force it down their throat. I just kind of said, this is what it is, and your experience will be your decision maker, not me and what I'm going to sell you. And I think we forgot that as chiropractors, and younger chiropractors are trying to really survive right now instead of thrive. And that's a problem. And that's why I am disappointed that you don't see a lot of them joining associations or being on something like this. This is a gem tonight. I was so happy that I caught my watch. I was like, oh my God, it's 8:30 already. I ran outside. I had everything set up, and I couldn't get the thing to go online. I was like, son of a bitch. So excuse me for being 4 minutes late.
To speak to that, uh, um, there was something I'm going to not tell about the person because him and his family are pretty well known. But part of the problem I think happening with the younger docs is they are not paying attention to the old guard. They want people their own age who hasn't figured out, and basically, what basically was said was, why should I go to New Beginnings when it's a bunch of old graybeards talking about their own experience and they're not even in practice anymore? That's why I go to things like Mile High, where the young docs are there and they're killing it. Part of it is that there's too much building fences. And part of what I'm doing with this band of brothers and why I put it up on YouTube and send it out is we got to stop circling the wagons, figuratively and literally, because that's what's really happening.
Well, a few weeks back, I went to DE, and there was like, out of most of the speakers, I would say there was probably 10 people that were young doctors that are just knocking it out of the park. And they were moving people because, they're like, well, if this guy can do it, I can do it too. So even though the old guard, probably the oldest person that spoke was somebody like 60 years old or 65 years old, they weren't like, ancient history. So, but I think that the most important thing is to show young, successful doctors that inspire these young clubs and people to come in, especially from schools. It's real important.
Well, the biggest problem that they're coming out of with the schools, and there's other people can talk about it, is they come out and they don't have the skills in their hands and they don't know how to communicate. They're being sold a bill of goods.
Critical thinking is also a problem. So it's a whole process. And remember, that 3 years plus of that pandemic, these kids weren't even on campus. And that's in every health science, if you think about it. They were learning from home, they were in their own worlds. And how many of them were really sharing and interacting? Ingenuity and innovation comes from being together, being around people, and throwing ideas off each other. And when you're in a house by yourself on Zoom like this, I mean, you can do it, but it's not the same. And
Nope, not at all.
I think there's a big hole right now, and I think Leo's right. These younger, successful doctors have to, listen. It's like when we were younger, we were all cranking, but we went to the meetings anyway. We all showed up together, and the conversation wasn't trying to get you to understand an it was trying to over inflate your numbers, saying you saw more than this guy did, or this guy did, or that guy did. Right? That's all it was. It was a whole different world back then.
We went to like meetings. I used to go to Jersey. I used to go to Pennsylvania. I used to go to places in New York, and you had 100 people now even in Florida, like one of the big things in Florida, they got the Saturday Night Live. And that's packed. There's like over 100 people at that meeting, and I've been to two things. It's great. It's freaking cool. And they'll have 2 or 3 people that come down and speak, and they usually have a young guy and an older guy, someone experienced, like who's going to draw the most people. But I think that's important. They got to get that, like you said, like connection. Remember how great that was when we had the thing in Harlem? That was awesome.
Right.
Oh yeah.
That was great.
Oh yeah.
And that should be 2 times a year at least.
Well, they're doing another one in White Plains in November. So keep your eyes open.
When in November?
I think it's November
I think
7th.
November
I want to
7th.
say the 6th or the 7th.
It's the 7th. It's a Saturday night.
Right,
Yeah.
Saturday night.
Cool.
And
Cairo
if anybody's
Futures is
interested,
Leo,
anybody
the tough
in
thing
Nassau.
it's so difficult to put those meetings on, and then a lot of times we don't get that many people to show up. And then, like I said, now we got Peter's Church, which is a big thing. But we lay tons of money out for hotels and that type of stuff. Those rooms would cost a fortune, so that's why we can't do it more than once a year.
Wow.
No, but even like
The cost on things is crazy nowadays.
Yeah.
For anybody interested, if you're in Nassau, this Wednesday, there's a watch party for Travis Corcoran. He's the philosophy speaker for the council. So Joe Bader's putting it on at Doug Robbins' office. So if you want to hang out for a while, come to the Robbins' office.
How was Scott Kelly?
Yeah, no, Scott Kelly, not Travis Corcoran. Scott Kelly, yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, Eric. Thanks, Tony.
Yeah, we got him coming on. Like I said, and then we're gonna have a meeting at Lenny's next week, next Wednesday. If you guys got some time, we're gonna do some Green Book quotes, and always get a good meal there. So you're always welcome.
awesome.
Awesome.
All right, boys.
Brian,
amazing,
excellent, brother.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you, sir.
Excellent, Brian.
Awesome stuff.
I will get you that handout.
Please, love to get it.
Although I got to warn you, when Dubell gave it to me, the pages were out of sequence. So they may be out of sequence for you. So you got to use.
That's all right. I'll try and figure it out.
Read the Green Books out of sequence anyway.
Like
May make more sense.
page 1 and then page 4 and then page 2 is where page 6 should be. But you can still read it and make it make sense.
I was going to say if it's only 10 pages, I can handle it. The Green Books, I'm still going through them. Please.
Yeah, as if they aren't confusing enough. This just confuses you more.
Exactly.
Good
All right,
Good
Johnny.
stuff, Brian.
Thanks,
Johnny
guys.
Mac can't thank you enough for your consistency and dedication to this, man. Appreciate
Always.
it.
Thank you,
Oh,
guys.
my pleasure, my
Thank
pleasure.
you, guys.
And it's,
Good night, boys.
Good night,
I think
everyone.
it's so necessary.
Thank you.